Are we
All
live?
right. Hello, my fallopian tubers. Welcome to my fourth installment of Authentic and Unaltered. With me today is Cesario from the Barrio with an interview for your butt. All right. So great to have you here, Caesar. Had to do that in your honor.
Thanks. Great to be here.
So, one of the things that sets you apart really in our community is really the high energy, the characters, uh, just putting yourself out there. Where does that come from? I mean, is this something you honed like with your kids doing characters or?
Uh, no. I mean, my whole channel at first, I kept it a secret. I'm a grown man. I can't act like that in front of my kids. But that's a trait I've had as long as I can remember. Even as a kid, I remember I used to like get my mom's clothes and my dad's clothes and mix and match. And I used to put a show. When I was like a freshman, remember I had a friend in my neighborhood who had like a little camera and he would let me borrow it and I would make videos. I used to make videos of myself, like, make music videos. Like I did all kinds of stuff and I used to dress up. So I've always done that. And before I started my YouTube channel, I was doing that on Instagram. But on Instagram back then, like 10 years ago or longer, you could only make 15-second videos. But when I was on YouTube, when I was on Instagram, I joined like a little club on Instagram. They were called masked golfers of Instagram, and it was basically these rich Japanese guys that own golf courses in Japan, and they would just feel themselves golfing in wrestling masks. They would golf in wrestling masks, like So I wanted to join, and they let me in. I was like the only person that really fit in there, but they loved my humor. So I started buying, more and more wrestling masks to make those videos on Instagram, to belong to that little clique. But I mean, then it grew. My Instagram channel, I used to make a lot of Star Wars videos. I had my Darth Vader mask with me at all times. I was called Darth Cholo. That was like the hashtag I used to. That's what everybody used to call me, Darth Cholo. But I would go around making videos in my Darth Vader mask. So that's something I've been doing for a long time. I've been doing that forever. But yeah, I remember one time my wife even told me because I mean, all that stuff would take a big giant trash bag. I had it all in the giant trash bag, and I used to keep it in my backseat of my car because it took up a lot of space. And then my wife was like, if you ever get pulled over by the cops and they see that bag of costumes, they're gonna think like, what? Because I also used to carry around candy and dog treats. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so she was always like, "Yeah, they're gonna think you're some kind of, abductor or like something weird. They're gonna arrest you."
Well, at least you weren't in a unmarked white van. So,
Yeah.
good stuff. So besides the comedy bits, I am actually a huge fan of Caesar the philosopher. Uh, just recently, you gave us the pearls of wisdom of act your wage,
Yeah.
and if you're not happy with your cards, you're not happy. Uh, was there any particular influences or life experiences that led you to be such a wise sage?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of life experiences and with other stuff, but as far as that quote, where like when I first kind of made that up, was when I first got on YouTube. When I first got on YouTube, care packages weren't called care packages back then. I'm talking about like 10 years ago or longer. Before even I was making videos. The card community was like really, really small on YouTube. I'm talking about little, like you knew everybody who made card videos. But they would send themselves packages called just because packages. They didn't call them care packages. And but these guys were sending each other like $300 cards, like $200 cards, like Tom Brady autographs, and like wow, like the wow factor was like really, really in the older care packages. But there was this one guy who actually went into credit card debt trying to keep up with the people and like got in trouble, like really in trouble financially. And so that's when somehow by accident that comment got in my head like, man, he said act your age, something that he was saying, and I thought I heard act your wage. And then I had that in my head, like, wow, and I started using that to people who were like, hey, don't do this, act your wage. Cause like I seen this guy who like literally got in trouble, like with his family, with his house, with everything, like financially, trying to keep up with the Joneses. So I said like, but like I said, the community was so small. I think everybody wanted to be a part of it and wanted to keep up. So that's where that came from.
Well, great. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely kind of living that myself. With still 3 kids at home in
Yeah.
school, I don't have a huge budget for my hobby, so
Yeah, I
something.
mean, you,
Yeah.
you have, yeah, like that was the first time I kind of like found a way to word it, but I've always thought that way. Like me too, same thing. I'm already 48 years old already, so I mean, I'm up to my kids already. Man, my oldest is gonna be 30 pretty soon. And so when like a lot of people have say like, well, they stopped collecting or they had a period where they stopped collecting. I didn't necessarily stop collecting, but I really put the brakes on it when I had my kids, and I moved out and I got an apartment. It was like, okay, I can't buy baseball cards. So I even put them in storage. Like I had a storage unit. And I still bought some here and there, but it wasn't cards weren't accessible as they were when I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, there was everywhere you went, there was cards, for sale at liquor stores, gas stations, dairies, like Kmart, everywhere. Everywhere you went, there was baseball cards. And all of a sudden, like by 95, 96, it was like, nobody was selling baseball cards anymore. So it was easy to kind of stay out of it. But I told myself, like, I can't buy baseball cards until my kids are, grown up or I have a really good job. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's always been in me that, don't spend too much. Yeah. And that's one thing. Like, I've never had a credit card in my life, never had a checkbook. Like, I just live by cash only, which is getting harder to do nowadays. Believe it or not, so many places that don't even accept cash.
Oh yeah, there's lots of places you'd shop and it's like card only, completely. So
Yeah, I mean that's why. So it's not like a big thing. Like a lot of people think being putting myself above other people are gonna say, oh, I don't shop online and like this. And it's like, well, because I don't have a credit card, so I've never bought on eBay. I've never bought on COS. None of those. I only buy in person basically for the most part.
yeah. Well, I mean, it helps where you live with the
Oh
availability.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I remember on Instagram somebody told me that. That's one of the things I remember about Instagram because I've been on Instagram. I was on Instagram like 15 years ago or 20 years ago, like when it first came out, and that had a very small card community. But there was people who lived like in Alaska, who lived like in really, off the grid kind of places. When they would say like, "Oh, today's a mail day," but they were saying it's a mail day because they got mail like once a week or once a month. So they were calling a mail day, and then like after that, it got kind of to like where everybody was saying a mail day. You know what I mean? It was like, well, you get mail every day. These guys are saying it because they got mail like once every 2 weeks or something. Oh, today's a mail day. I can't wait.
Yeah. Versus now, it's just when you get a card in the mail.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's just one of the things like LCS. Like everybody, oh, I went to New York and I went to an LCS. No, an LCS is a local card shop by your house. Not every card shop is called an LCS.
yeah. Um. Oh, just by the way, we are actually the same age, but I got a much later start. So, um, so beginning collecting cards. What was the like the first cards you started collecting and
Well,
ever?
yeah, that's kind of one of the things because that's been a subject of a lot of response videos. Like when people have a giveaway,
Yeah.
over the last so many years. That's been a question that's often been asked for response videos, and that's the thing is like I don't really have a story. Like I just remember that I've been collecting forever. When I was little, we had a toy box, and I remember having cards in my toy box all the time. Like my dad my family's a baseball family. I was in love with baseball first and still am, but we're a baseball family. So when you go, say my dad would give me $1 and we go to the dairy, the baseball cards were with the candies and the gum. You know what I mean? I remember like I used to love to buy the what was it called? Was it Bubblicious or I forgot the candy? Oh, Tidal Wave. And the baseball cards were always right next to that gum. It was like a gum that had like a juice inside that would burst. It was called Tidal Wave. I remember. But the baseball cards, I remember that was right next to my house. So when my dad would give me $1, we go buy. I could get a gum, a chocolate bar, and a pack of baseball cards because baseball cards were a lot cheaper back then.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I've always bought them, but I was buying them because I love baseball. I'd get a couple cards and hope for some Dodgers, and then throw them in my box. But the first time I really uh, got to like where I started taking it seriously, I guess, where I started, okay, I found out how to order with my cousin. He came down to my house and we went to an ice cream truck. And then he showed me like the back of the cards. Like he told me, well, see, these numbers mean something. This is card number this. He's all this design. He's all these are from 86. These are from 85. So then that's when I started when I would go through my shoebox and take all my cards out, and I found out, oh, these are 86, these are 85. And the reason I say 86 because I think that was 86 because I remember those were the newest cards that I had were 86 when he taught me that. So from 86 on, that's when I started like,
Being a
oh,
set
I
collector.
want to finish get all the cards.
Yeah. Well, so what was there an influence to shift you towards vintage at all?
Well, when I was younger, I used to have a lot of replicas, vintage replicas, like that you just buy at Kmart or whatever, and they would all have the price in the back, and I had and one of my dad's friends a long time ago, he gave me these books, giant, I mean tubs, like 2 tubs of books from the Sporting Good News. I think it was Sporting News, and it was all stats and a bunch of books about vintage baseball players. I had like the top 100 players. I remember a book called the Top 25 Players. So I started like idolizing, Mickey Mantle, Hank Aaron, uh, all the older players, Babe Ruth, Willie Mays. Like I started admiring these guys. But as a kid who like would get $1 on the weekends, vintage cards, I never seen them, until I started going to car shows when I was older. But like I said, man, I was collecting, when I was 10 years old, and I
Yeah.
never had any serious money. But it wasn't until like I was 16 and I got a job with legally, like when I started going to car shows and buying like vintage packs. Back then they weren't called vintage, they were just older packs. But I wanted but yeah, like I could go to the car show with $20, but no Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays was, the good ones weren't $20 back then.
Yeah.
Uh, but I always wanted vintage, and it wasn't till I got back into the hobby in 2004 where like Willie went full steam. It was in 2004, and all I bought was vintage when I came back. You know, when I was a kid, I used to collect Daryl Strawberry. I used to have a top 10 list, so it was like Daryl Strawberry, Wade Boggs, Don Mattingly, Will Clark, Wally Joyner. I had a top 10, and I would buy their cards at card shows all the time. And so when I got back into the hobby, I was surprised that I didn't just continue where I left off. You know what I mean? I just
Yeah.
wanted to buy vintage, and that's all I ever bought was vintage for like 10 years. So like about 2015 is when I think I really started buying modern again.
All right. Um, Speaking of collecting sets, I mean, you can see all those binders behind you. You've got an amazing collection of sets. Is there any particular favorites that you want to talk about and maybe show off a little bit?
Oh man, as far as my favorites, I mean the 1958 set and the 1969. You know, and also one of one of the I think an underrated set is also the 64 Tops Giants.
Oh yeah.
I remember the Sandy Koufax. That's considered a short print, just because it was less of them printed than I think almost any of the other cards. But I really love the 64 set. But man, I completed this. And I remember Sandy Koufax being the most expensive card in the set, and man, I think it was like $80, like in great shape, and that was the most expensive card in the set. And the rest of them, man, they were like $5, some for $10. Like Hank Aaron, I remember I got that for $10, but it has so many great names because it's a small set. You can see Willie Mays, Hank Aaron. So that's one of my favorites, especially the newspaper kind of thing you look on the side.
Yeah.
But that's one of my, you can say almost all of them. But I mean, my favorite set of all time that I wish I could work on is a 65. That would probably be I think my most favorite set that I would like to complete. But I don't know, man. I started working on the sets. When I was back in the hobby and I was only buying vintage, one thing I did start working on was I wanted to complete all my sets that I had as a kid that I had started. So I had a bunch of 85, 84, 87. The first set I ever completed was 1989 tops that I actually completed from packs, even though I've been collecting forever. But on a kid's budget, that was, so this card right here was the very last card that I needed. That's why this card means so much to me. Like it's card 707 in the 89 tops. And when I got that card, when I finally pulled it, I mean, you would think I pulled a Mickey Mantle rookie. You know what I mean? I was like, oh my God. I was so happy that first set that I completed. And I did it on my own, especially as a kid. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't have anybody to trade with it. When I was a kid, me and my cousin were like almost the only ones that collected cards. And he lived in Eagle Rock, like, I hardly ever seen him. But I didn't really have any friends that collected. It was pretty much me solo for like my whole life. So
Well,
Instagram and YouTube came along.
yeah. It's actually funny you mentioned the '89 tops because I mean I started collecting in '83 and with Donruss, and my disappointment of not being able to get all the cards with packs because I didn't buy enough at the time led to me then purchasing full sets only for the next all the way till '89. And '89 tops was the first set I compiled with packs as
Yeah,
well.
see, yeah, and I'm kind of gonna move away from that now. I've been doing it that way, but it just doesn't make financial sense anymore. I mean,
Oh
that's
yeah,
the bad thing. Like I said in one of my videos, like I wish like they would make blaster boxes with guaranteed no hits, so they would be cheaper and more cards.
oh yeah,
Because I don't
collector
care about the
boxes.
hits. I don't care about the hits. I don't care. I mean, unless it's a great card or a great player. But for the majority, I mean, they have so many hits now. Like most of them, I don't care about. I'd rather have. I'm buying the boxes to complete my sets. I'm not that gambler guy who's hoping to get a hit. I'm not. That's where the value
Yeah,
is because you might get this card. It's like I know for a fact I'm not getting that card. I'm not pulling anything. I've been buying
yeah,
packs blasters since like 2015 consistently to complete all my sets, and I'm talking about Topps Chrome, Archives, Heritage. I don't think I have any great hit that I can brag about. You know what I mean? And I'm talking
yeah.
about probably 1,000 blaster boxes over my lifetime.
Sure. Yeah, I'm disappointed in that as well. I'm right there with you. I wish they made like a collector friendly product that was reasonably priced for pack opening. I mean, I miss '89 '90. That was
Yeah,
fun years of opening all those packs
yeah,
for me.
yeah.
So
That was great. Like I remember, like what the '87. I remember those were 45 cents. I think
yeah,
because I
'89
would
was still 45 cents. I remember for
yeah, 'cause
tots.
I was in junior high at the time, and my discounted lunch was 25 cents a day. So my mom gave me 25 cents a day. So every 2 days I could go buy a pack, and there'd be 45 cents, and I'd have a nickel left. Then 2 days later, I'd go buy another pack with the 50 cents. Every day I would keep a quarter, and then, till I complete the 50, and then I would get 5 cents every other day. Till eventually there's that day would come where I got all my nickels and my 50 cents. I could get two packs. Woo! Like, yeah, that was '87, I believe that was, and they were 45 cents.
Yeah, I think in '90 they bumped up to 50 cents, but then Upper Deck felt super expensive, doing $1 a pack, and I didn't buy any.
Yeah, I hardly bought any Upper Deck. But yeah, by '89, I mean, then Score came out also. So that
Yeah.
was new, like, and so yeah, that's when the card stock started changing. Everybody else was still cardboard. And
Oh
then
yeah.
Score felt different. Upper Deck totally felt different.
Yeah, '90. That me and my buddies were all after that Score Bo Jackson card. So
Yeah, I remember I got that pretty early. Like, it was like one of the first packs I bought. I got it. So, like, never got to live the chase, like for a long time till I got it. I got it. I got that high right away.
yeah. Um. So uh, I'm sure anyone who's seen your channel is well aware of your love for the Dodgers. Is there any particular players in their history that are your favorites?
Uh, my favorite, I mean, I have one of the things is like the 80s was really, really big for me, with baseball memories and stuff. So, to me, a lot of the players are Pedro Guerrero was like probably my favorite in the early 80s for the longest. Mike Marshall, Steve Sachs, Steve Garvey, Fernando Valenzuela, obviously, Ron Say. To me,
Yeah.
the Dodgers were like the greatest team ever. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So yeah, so after that, yeah, I mean, every time I think about my favorite players, I always my memories always goes to the '80s because we used to go to a lot of Dodger games when I was a kid. My at my dad's work, his boss had season tickets, so he gave us a lot of games that he just didn't go to, so we would go for free. We didn't have money by no means, but I was very, very. I had a great childhood, like because my dad would get free tickets at his work to Dodgers games, Angels games. You know what I mean? We would go to WWF. We go to the Fabulous Thunderbirds on rollerblading. I forgot what is it? Deck. What was it called? Where they skate around and they hit each other all the time.
yeah,
We used to
roller derby.
roller derby. We used to go to
Yeah.
those all the time. My uncles. I had my uncles. They were in the Navy, and they're all my dad's family's all from Texas. That's why I'm a Cowboys fan. He raised me a Cowboys fan, but he raised me a Dodgers fan. He just never followed the Rangers or the Astros for whatever reason. But all my uncles from Texas, all his brothers, they were stationed in Long Beach. They were in the Navy, stationed in Long Beach. So whenever they get on the weekends, they would come over and they would take me to Raiders games, Rams games, like the movies, like so. I had a great. The '80s were just like the greatest time of my life. But so that's what I remember the most. But you want to talk all time and historical wise, you know, Sandy Koufax, Roy Campanella. I mean, those are like the really big names for me.
Sure. Um, so another very impressive part of your collection that I've seen some videos on is your Mickey Mantle run. I guess the first question of that: how does a Southern California boy end up being a huge fan of what would be the icon of basically the World Series arch nemesis?
Well, I think that started also as a kid. Um, so I did used to have these books. Like I remember I had a book called the Top 100 Players, and then there was another one, the Top 25 Players, and it would have a page for each player, just a whole page talking about that player. And Mickey Mantle from the start, just his bio, like gripped me. You know how because it talked about how he was like the real first prospect. He was like the first guy to come up from high school. Like this is the next star, like for sure. This guy is gonna be like Babe Ruth. He's gonna be like Joe DiMaggio. You know, he's supposed to take over Joe DiMaggio's spot.
Yeah,
Uh, and then you read a story how his first year he didn't do so hot, and they sent him back down to the minors. And he called his dad. He's like, "Just pick me up. I'm not going. I'm gonna quit." And then his dad's like, "Oh, you're gonna come work in the coal mines with me the rest of your life?"
yeah.
I think was that Zoolander ripped that Mickey Mantle story off of him because his dad worked at the coal mines, and his dad so you want to work here the rest of your life?
Oh
But
yeah.
Mantle goes back,
I
he
got the
becomes
black
really
lung.
yeah, I got the black on tops. So, that story intrigued me. But one thing too that I had an addiction to was the TV show Cheers and Taxi. And those shows used to come on at 11 at night. And then right after that, I would watch either David Letterman or Johnny Carson. And I remember a couple of interviews with Mickey Mantle on David Letterman. And his storytelling was great. Like, have you ever like seen the story? He told it on David Letterman, but I read it in the book too, also about with him and like Billy Martin. We're gonna go quail hunting. You hear that story?
I haven't heard that one.
I remember hearing that as a kid, and I just and like, and Mickey Mantle just captures you because he was old, but his personality was like a kid. He's laughing, like feel his energy. I love that. Like I connected with him even as a kid. But anyways, he tells a story about like they're gonna him and Billy Martin used to go quail hunting all the time, in the off season. So Mickey Mantle knew this farmer from because he was a farmer. He grew up in Oklahoma area, and he had this one of his dad's old friends. He owned he was already a retired like farmer, and so he just had a few like prize winning cows. Like they were just perfect specimen cows that he would take to shows, and so he had a quail farm, and he didn't really farm anymore because he was already old. So Mickey Mantle would go quail hunting there. So he tells Billy Martin, "Hey, let's go quail hunting." So they drive like 3 hours to get there, right? And then when they get there, Billy Martin, they're working on their shotguns, and Mickey Mantle goes to the door. He's okay. I'm gonna go tell them that we're here, and and he'll usually gives me some food and water, so we could take with us. So Mickey Mantle goes to the farmer, knocks on the door. He's like, hey, Mickey, you here to shoot? All right, have fun. He's like, hey, but can you do me a favor? And Mickey Mantle, okay, yeah, sure. What do you need? He said, one of my old cows, she's already old and she's in pain, and I need to take her out. He's like, but I don't have the heart to do it. And Mickey Mantle's like, so you want me, to take it out of his misery? He's like, if you could just do me the favor. And Mickey Mantle's like, okay, I could do that. And he says, oh, okay, bye. And he goes on his way, and he goes to the truck to tell, and he decides he's going to play a trick on Billy Martin. He tells Billy Martin, hey, he doesn't. He said we can't shoot. He just told me that. And Billy Martin's like, what do you mean? He's like, you told me he said we could. We drove 3 hours all this time, and we can't go hunting. Yeah, he told me we can't go hunting. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna go take out one of his cows. And then Billy Martin's like, no, no, don't do that. No, let's just go. It's not worth it. Mickey Mantle's like, screw this guy. He goes over there and shoots that old cow that guy told him to take it out. He shoots it. Boom. Took it out of his misery what he was told to do. And then behind him, he hears two more shots, two more shotgun shots, like bow, bow. And Mickey's like, what's going on? And he turns around, and Billy Martin's over there. Hey, I got two of his other cows.
Oh, jeez.
And supposedly they were like some prize winning cows, and like he had to pay a lot of money, you know.
That's
But
crazy.
things like that, like him telling the story, it was so great, and the friendship that he always tell him and Billy Martin stories, and the friendship that he has, like I always envy that for whatever reason, you know.
Yeah, I heard they traded Billy Martin because they thought he was too much of a bad influence of Mickey partying.
Yes, and a lot of people actually believe like no, it was Mickey Mantle, and it seemed like everybody else was there to protect him, because
Yeah,
he was a star.
exactly. So, you want to show off some of your Mickey cards right now?
Sure. Um, got a couple here. This is the 53,
Beauty.
and like this card for me, like growing up, was never really, really on my radar. Uh, it just never really was like because as a kid, you see the cards that you see in Beckett. You know what I mean? That's how most of my cards that I ever wanted was because I used to see them in Beckett magazine. I never really saw that card too much. Uh, but this is and basically all these cards right here. This one too, the 54, 55. All these cards. I work at Dodger Stadium, so at the end of the year, after the year, we get a bonus if they make the playoffs. So normally none of these cards will be in my budget, but each of these cards I bought with my bonus, from the playoffs.
Sweet.
This one I got it in 2018 because it was when we went to the World Series and we lost to the Red Sox. So all these cards basically is like every time I get a bonus, I go buy a Mickey Mantle card that I normally wouldn't be able to afford. And this is the last one that I bought, and this is my oldest 10 that I have. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, and I had never even seen it before, but it's just a playing card.
Yeah.
But the guy had it for $80, and I had the $80 to spare, and I bought it. That was the card I bought with this year. Not a high dollar card because I think I got each of these for like around 200. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
this one was 80. So we didn't get that good of a bonus this year. So that's what I got. And
Okay.
another Mickey Mantle that I love is this All Star with Boyer. A lot of people probably aren't too familiar with Boyer, but Boyer is one of those guys that when they took this, he was like doing really great. He had a great year, so he was one of the hottest stars. But
Yeah.
career wise, I guess he never panned out. So a lot of people in the hobby don't know too much about Boyer.
Yeah. I've heard some people talk about him as kind of a high peak, but not long enough.
Yeah. So this card right here is like the card that this was my holy grail growing up. You know what I mean?
That is a
I
popular one.
wanted this
Yeah.
more than the 52. The 52nd. I this was I just love this card right here. That I wanted this card because I used to see it in the price guides all the time. So this is the card I wanted. So that
Sweet.
this was like my holy grail, and then it was like one of the first cards I bought. So now my holy grail is the 52, which I'll never have.
Yeah. I mean, I since I knew you were going to show some of these, I just pulled out my one Mickey Mantle. That's a one, so I could afford it.
Yeah, the
So
rest of my Mickey Mantles, I have them in this box, and they're all raw. Oh, and I was gonna say, speaking when you said you like to collect the 83, the 83 tops Mike Smith, it was like a PSA 7 or something. That was the first graded card I ever bought because that was the last card I needed to complete my 1983 set. So I couldn't find it. It was kind of tough at that time to find a lot of these 80s cards raw because nobody really had, commons of the 80s. But that Mike Smith was the last one I needed, and I found it in a graded slab, and it was like $2. So I remember that was the first card I ever bought, and I needed to take it out to put it in my binder, and I just split it open. Like the old PSA slabs were easy to open. So
oh
I just,
yeah, they're pretty flimsy.
yeah, the old ones, the first ones.
Yep.
So that was the first, slab I ever bought. And I took it out to put it in my set.
Cool. That leads right in kind of my next question. That I was surprised what you're saying there because in a recent video you made the point that you hate the term raw, and you are quoted as saying it's just a baseball card,
Yeah.
not in a plastic prison. So,
Yeah.
um, uh, and I have heard you make some references occasionally to a PIG-10. And since you are rather prolific in producing videos, I was not able to research far enough back to find out what that means. Could you explain that one for me?
So the PIG is I started as a spoof. I made one spoof video uh because I was talking to somebody about slabs, and I said, man, I wish, you know, I wish that they would make them in the color of the card. So, and then that same day, I happened to be I think at Walmart, and they had these stickers of different colors that were like the exact same size, you know? So I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a video talking about what I just said. And so I thought of a name and I said, okay, it's gonna be Pepino's infamous grading, where every card gets a 10, So I'll show you one. I think I have one here. And it's using that Mike Smith slab too. Okay. So I got one that somebody sent me. But this is the slab right here, but you can see the thing fell off. but PIG is Pepino's infamous grading, and but I only had one one slab, so I would make a bunch of videos and I would have to switch them out. Ah, this thing is so I've opened it and closed it so many times that it's pretty flimsy now. Doesn't hold tight like it used to.
Yeah.
But I bought I took a guard off an SEG card, and so yeah, I started my own grading company. Like this is it. Like that's PIG, Pepino's infamous grading, and I give every card a 10. You know,
Awesome.
so I just made a video like I'm starting a grading company, and it's gonna be better than PSA, you know, better than Beckett. You know, there was only like 3 around still at that time when I made that video, but it was just a spoof, a one time thing. And then like people were like, "Oh man, I want to. Can you? Do you have a PAG slab of this? Yeah, you know." So I started making a bunch of them, you know, and I started making videos that it got kind of popular. I have this. I don't know if you can see it. This pig thing. I have a. But yeah, kind of by more of demand, I made a couple more videos, and you know, but I don't think I made one in quite a while. But that's what it is Pepino's infamous grading, where I started just matching the card with the color, you know. And
Yeah.
one thing I do remember, like, because this was like 3 or 4 years ago, somebody made a comment. Wow, matching the color to the color slab, you know, the color of the card to the tag is a great idea. I'm starting a new company. I'm gonna. Is it cool if I use that idea? And I was like, yeah, go ahead, man. It's like I don't care. Pig is not a real grading company. You know what I mean? I don't have a.
So it's
I don't.
HGA that stole your idea then, and
I think so because and I remember like a year later, people were saying, "Oh, look at the SGA, like and this and that." And I say, "Hey, I wonder if it's the same guy who commented on my video that was starting a new company." And but when I went back, the comment was deleted. So and I didn't delete it. The guy had to delete it himself. So I always wondered about that.
so there you go, royalties, huh? Time for the lawsuit.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's what you know. So that's that was my idea. PIG grading. You know, grades for
Yeah,
your butt.
awesome. I wish I had one. Um, Another video of yours I recently enjoyed was your insights as a groundskeeper on the things you notice on cards. And I was wondering, related to that, have you had any awesome encounters with players with that kind of access or anything you?
Yeah. Yeah, but you can't. I remember the very first one. Because they have strict rules at Dodge Stadium. You're not supposed to fraternize with the players. You don't talk
Mhm.
to them unless they talk to you first. And so I remember for my first year, like I try to stay away from players. But the next year when we played, when Vladimir Guerrero went to the Angels and we played the Angels, I was so starstruck. Like I couldn't help it. That my boss was like working in left field, and Vladimir Guerrero was coming out of the dugout because they used to walk across the field to the buses in center field before. So they would always come to the field while we were working on it. So every player would walk right by us. You know, it was like,
Yeah.
and I, but I didn't feel like breaking the rules until I saw Vladimir Guerrero. I was like, I got to take a picture with this guy. Like, oh man, I think he's so great. And in that game, he slid at home and he busted his arm, so he was in a sling. And so he came out, and I told him, you know, and I talked to him in Spanish, like, hey, ¿puedo agarrar una foto contigo? And he's like, ah, sí, ándale. And so he called me up, and, you know, this was like an old phone, man. And I took the picture, and then he started walking away, and I'm like, gracias. And then I look at the picture, like, I guess I had moved it, and it was just like a big blur. And I was like, oh, so, Vladimir, me da otra, por favor, me da otra. Can you give me another one? He's like, oh, yeah. He was the nicest guy, cooperated, went back, walked back, and we took another picture. He's like, oh, you know, told me make sure I don't move my hand this time, keep it there, you know. And then took the picture.
It's
And then
awesome.
so yeah, that was my very first one. But yeah, I've had so many after that. I mean, Derek Jeter was one of the guys I got starstruck with. Even Manny Ramirez and Big Papi, when we played them at the Coliseum, when the Dodgers had a game against the Red Sox at the Coliseum, I remember them walking down the stairs at the Coliseum, and they walked by me like, and just Manny like say, "Oh, like you like." Manny had like he would talk to anybody who thought it was Hispanic. You know what I mean? Him and Ortiz. So that was one of the things. So they talked to me, and I was just like, whoa, like that was so cool. That was way before he went to the Dodgers, though.
Awesome. Uh, anyone in particular was a jerk, or are they
Oh,
usually
I
cool?
mean, Kevin Brown was a huge jerk. Jeff Kent was a huge jerk. Yeah, you every once in a while you get those guys that are high and mighty, and you get some guys that are really really cool. Like Chase Utley was unbelievably cool. He was really 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 good guy. Interactive with us. Uh, Pierre, Juan Pierre was really good with us.
Yeah,
But when I first started, uh, the players were really really cool with us. Like I used to think it was gonna be like that forever, but they would give us their broken bats, they would give us their old gloves, their cleats, like all the time. So I mean, I used to have a bunch of Andre Ethier, Matt Kent, Kershaw, the players when I first started. They would constantly give us stuff like, hey, here, you want it? Like, I'm gonna get a new one. They get new stuff all the time.
sure.
Um, and I thought it was gonna be like that forever. And then just, so I would give them away. I would always give them away, think it's gonna be like this forever. I'll get another one. Kershaw give me another bat. No big deal. And then one year, like Steiner auctions or something, Steiner whatever, they got rights to everything. So every broken bat, like bat boys run away, get it, and there's an authenticator in the dugout. So as soon as they bring that ball in, the bat, the glove, whatever, the authenticator authenticates it and writes it down, and like boom, it would go to Steiner Sports. So that was the end of it, that I thought was gonna last forever.
Yeah, any revenue stream they can grab onto. So,
Yeah,
uh, well, that was my standard question. So, if you're ready to go, I'm going to give you some random get to know Caesar questions.
yeah.
All right. Uh, if you were stepping up to the plate, what would you want to be your walk up music?
Ooh, my waka music. Uh, Man, just first thing that's popping into my head is it's a Pantera song called "Walk," just because I'm walking up there. But
Cool.
man, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that would be it as a walk up song.
All
That's the
right.
first thing that comes into my head is because it's called "Walk."
That'll work. Uh, what fictional character would you like to be friends with?
Ooh, that's made up guy, right?
Yeah.
Man, shoot, man, there's so many. Um, Pikachu.
All right. Pika Pika.
Yeah, that's all you got to say. It'd be easy to learn a second.
There you go. Uh, what is the best meal you've ever eaten?
The best meal I've ever eaten. Um, Man, for some reason, I don't like it all the time. Like, but when I do eat it, I love it. It's like the first thing that comes into my head is corned beef hash. I don't know. Well, I was in the service, and when we would go on bivouacs, when we would go stay out on the field for like a month, and we get all the MREs. Everybody get a different MRE every day.
Yeah.
Everybody would give me their corned beef hash. Like people that had corned beef hash, they just wouldn't like it, and I ended up growing to love it. You know, for a good while, man. And that's something like I just never come across. And when I do, it's like, oh, I love it. I love that stuff, but nobody ever makes it.
It does seem to be one of those foods that's either like a love or hate. And
Yeah, like I said, I don't think I can eat that every day. But when I eat it so less, it's like, oh, all right, I can
my
see
wife
that
is in the
part.
love camp, and I would be in the hate. So, um, if money were no object, what would be the first thing you'd want to do?
And if money was no object, I'd get a 52 tops Mickey Mantle.
All right. Instead of on your deathbed, I guess.
Yeah, then I could yeah, yeah. 'Cause I've always had this thing in my head where when I get older, I just want to go to card shows and sell my cards cheap to like younger people. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So if I could do that, that'd be great.
Uh, if you could uninvent one thing in the world, as in make it no longer exist, what would it be?
Man, I would think I would be thinking like those hoverboards and stuff like that. Now and plus every other knockoff. After that, the electric scooters, electric skateboards. I work at USC in the ground, and there's this field, McAllister, our soccer field across from us, 2 blocks away. And man, when you're driving the tractor or whatever you got to go through, all these kids are just with their pods, just zooming in front of you, like cutting you off, and their hoverboards and their electric boards. Like that's something that bugs me every single day. I wish that didn't exist anymore. Because then,
Oh,
I remember like when I first started there, everybody was walking on the sidewalks. Now everybody has all these electrical things, just cutting you off and zooming in front of you. So it's like something I deal with almost on a daily basis.
oh yeah. Um, Vastest one of everybody. What's your favorite movie?
Ooh, my favorite movie. Man, that's a tough one. I love movies, and I actually have like a DVD collection. When I wasn't buying baseball cards, I'd buy a DVD with every single paycheck. And if I had to just say like what movies do I think I've watched the most, like just repeatedly, would probably be Fever Pitch and Saturday Night Fever. I don't know if it's just because it has the word fever, but like I could watch those all the time. And Scarface, you know.
Solid choices. Um, what is Oh wait. What did I write there? If you were a ghost, is there anyone you would like to haunt?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would haunt my friend Renee. All right, nobody famous that I could think of, but my friend Renee. One time we went to a sports field, convention that we go to for groundskeepers, and we were staying in Arizona and Phoenix, and I stayed at a hotel that was haunted, that had like a big reputation of being haunted. So after a night of drinking and partying, I went back to my room. And like, they were asking me, "Hey, well, where are you staying at?" I said, "Oh, I'm at the hotel." "Oh, that's the one that's haunted." I'm like, "Yeah, there's like all kinds of storyboards in there and like saying it's haunted and this and that." And so I went back to the room, and this is already like 3 in the morning. I'm trying to go to sleep, and the phone rings. And the phone is one of those older phones that has like the bell with the little stick that hits it.
Oh
So I
yeah,
mean, it was super, super loud. I just, and I answer it, and it's my friend Renee. Ooh, ooh. And I was like, so I hang up. Then he calls back again. And he kept doing that for a half hour until I finally left it off the hook. But then you leave it off the hook and it's like, "Dee, dee, 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 dee." So I hang it up and then he calls back right away. As soon as I hang it up, it rings and he's on the phone. Ooh, I'm haunting you. Ooh. So I would love to return the favor for life.
sounds like a good choice then. Uh, what is the most bizarre dream you've ever had?
The most bizarre dream, man. Man, I don't know. I've had many. I guess you could say, but well, I'll just go with oh man, that's tough. 'Cause I dream. I have like 2 or 3 dreams a night. I can't think of one with right away. That'd be the most bizarre. But yeah, I mean, there's so many weird ones where I'm a snail or just some weird things. And life is slow, and trying to cross the freeway.
Okay. Um, uh, you go all out with like costumes and masks and all that in your videos. What's the craziest thing you've actually worn in public?
In public, that's got to be when I was in high school. And so this is when I had my friend's camera, and I had just made a video. Do you remember that song? You
Oh yeah, that
know,
one gets in your head.
sitting at the
Tom's
diner.
Diner. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had just made a video to that song, and I was dressed like a girl. I have a little sister. She was in junior high. I was in high school at the time, I believe. And I got one of her tops that were regular size for her, but to me it was so much taller than her. It was really small, and I put these things in my chest, and I was wearing some little shorts, and I got my mom's high heels on, and I made a video, of Tom's that I think it's called Times, whatever it was. I
Yeah,
made a video. I made a video to that song, right?
sure.
And so after I was done and I was watching the video, I was like, "Oh man, I kind of look like a hot chick," And so and I hadn't changed. I was watching the video because everybody's at school. I was at home. My mom doesn't come home till 5. This was like 2 in the afternoon, and so for whatever reason, it came into my head. I said, I'm gonna wear this and I'm gonna ride my sister's bike in front of the school because high school is about to get out. You know what I mean? I didn't have a last period. So school was about to get out like at 2:50 and it was like 2:30. And I was like, well, I don't want anybody to recognize me. And I got my ATC helmet. We used to have ATCs and quad runners and stuff. So I got a big biker helmet and I just put that on. I was like, well, nobody's gonna recognize me. And I'm telling you, I had this little top with these big fake boobs, and I had these little Daisy Dukes. I got some of my mom's old shorts, and I cut them really short. Like my butt cheeks were probably hanging out the back. I cut them really short, Daisy Dukes. Had my mom's high heels on. Get on my sister's bike, which is way too small for me, and I go right in front of the high school as it's getting out, and everybody's coming out, and people are like looking at me. This is before phones and people had cameras, but I could hear everybody look at everybody. So you hear it's more vocal. People are telling each other, "Hey, look at who's that?" Hey, and I'm writing, and the school police come. They see me and they pull me over. They pulled over like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Take your helmet off." I was like, "No, no." And I had to take my helmet off, and then I was like, "Oh, look, it's Caesar! Oh, it's Caesar!" Like, but that was like a really, really, really girl. I was dressed like I was at a nightclub.
Yeah, crazy. Uh, Last question. Uh, After watching many of your high energy antics, I have always wondered, have you ever injured yourself or damaged anything while making your videos?
Well, like about a year ago, uh, there was this guy Jeff Airtime that used to do these trivia videos every Sunday morning. So I would go. That's how I started my Starbucks coffee runs, was because he would go live at 8. So I would go to Starbucks at about 7, and I would do live videos for an hour, like two, and try to catch a crowd. So okay, everybody go watch Jeff Airtime trivia now. It was kind of like the pre-show of his show. And so yeah, like I said, this was like 7 in the morning. I went to Starbucks, I got a coffee, and I pull over on the road because there's a road by my house where like it's pretty empty on the weekends. It's like, it's pretty long, so I can see if any cars are coming. So if I'm driving by there and there's no cars coming, I'll pull over and I'll dance in the middle of the street. So I got off my car and I started doing this dance, and right away I pulled my hamstring, my calf. I pulled my calf, and I mean, I was in pain, like it hurt, and
Oh
a car
yeah.
almost hit me, like a because I wasn't paying attention to the road. I was jumping up and down. But yeah, like I was in that injury lasted like 2 months, like before I got better. Like, and it would hurt like for a year. You know what I mean? And when it was cold, I'd feel it. But yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
pretty much tore I tore it. It felt like
So
my
you
calf.
devoted your body to your art.
Oh, and there was this one time where I was telling somebody else. I told this story before. I was in my backyard and I was making a video, jumping over my Darth Vader. I had a 12-inch Darth Vader doll, and I had this BMX bike track on the back of my house. So I had a big ramp, and I would jump over it. And so this was on the problem back then. I used to get off of work at 1 o'clock, so I get home at 1:30. My kids are still in school. My wife's at work, so I'd have a lot of time by myself. That's when I would make my videos. But like I said, I wouldn't do that in front of my kids. I wouldn't dress up and do all that in front of my kids. So I hauled ass on the ramp on my bike and jumped over the figure. And I tried to do a tabletop where you lean your bike to the side, and I hit it. I landed wrong, and I went over my stomach hit the handlebars, and I knocked the wind out of myself. And so the camera was on me, and I was on the floor for like 20 minutes because I knocked the wind out of myself, and my ribs were hurting. And yeah, that was like for a long time I was like, dude, I think I'm really like effed up. I think I need to go to the hospital. Like I was bad, like, But for like 20 minutes, I was on the floor, like all alone, nobody around me. I couldn't get any help. My cell phone was over there filming me. You know?
Yeah, agony. Uh, well, this has been a lot of fun for me, Caesar. Thank you for accepting my invitation and coming on the show, giving lots of your stories. Any last things you want to share with the folks?
Like a question I get, like a lot of people always say like, oh, a lot of people always tell me like, oh, I love what you do with your binders, how you put the cards. I started doing that too.
Yeah,
I used to put the pack in on the spine. I used to put the pack, and I said I used to do the same thing too. But once I got my 58 set, I couldn't find a 58 pack, and I started doing my 69 pack. I couldn't find a 69 pack, so I just put the card instead. And then somebody like commented, "Hey, that's a good idea." Oh, okay. So then I started to do it to all of them. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it didn't exactly like wasn't a genius move that I had. It was just kind of by necessity. Just thought I'd share that fact.
cool. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It was great to get to know you more. Look forward to maybe getting you to meet you in person someday, somewhere.
Yeah.
Uh, but I guess that is it for now. Thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you next time.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Ciao.